Good morning everyone. Basa na tayo ng ating libro guys. History of the Filipino People by Agoncillo and Guerrero. Today is 30 November 2022. Nasa part 2 pa rin tayo ng History of the Filipino People, the Spanish period. Topic number 6. Philippine Society under Spain. Paragraph Cultural Development. Yung may mga libro dyan ng History of the Filipino People, basa na. Cultural development. To a certain extent, cultural development under Spain reflected the bankruptcy and inadequacy which underlay Spanish political policy. The colonial masters introduced the Spanish language but did not make it the lingua franca of the colony. The Spaniards did not propagate the language and the priors in violation of several royal decrees that required them to teach Spanish to the people, instead learn the native languages, wrote religious works, and proselytized in the latter. According to Marcelo H. del Pilar, the priors who were entrusted with the education of the natives opposed the government policy of making Spanish the common language of the people for fear that the country may become Hispanized and cease to be a monastic colony. The people would understand each other and would be able to question the objectionable aspects of Spanish rule. Consequently, only the wealthy and educated Filipinos learned to speak and write in Spanish, a knowledge which enabled them to partake of Western intellectual thought of the 19th century that became their most potent weapon in challenging the supremacy of Spanish authority. Even so, the influence of Spanish on the native languages was so profound that the masses used many words borrowed or derived from the Spanish language. Father, bird, silya, sibuyas, cebolla, etc. Naturally, this cultural borrowing interests the indigenous languages. Creditably enough, the Spanish priors wrote handbooks on grammar and books on Tagalog, lexicography, and preserved Tagalog and other native languages. Philippine literature was predominantly religious in tone and character. The Dominicans introduced the first printing press in Manila in 1593, and the same year put out the first printed book in the Philippines, the Doctrina Cristiana in Lengua Española y Tagala. Later, the priors published countless sermons, novenas, and tracts through which they conditioned Filipino mentality and brought their influence to bear upon the Filipinos. Other types of literature had the same purpose and orientation. Among these are the Passion, a long song about the passion and death of Jesus Christ, the Cenaculo, a religious play revolving around the same theme, the Comedia de Capa y Espada, cloak and dagger play, the Moro, a blood and thunder drama about Christians and Muslims, in which the former inevitably emerged victors, and the awit and corrido or metrical romances. All types of literature were subject to previous censorship, censura, previa, by a church-dominated censors commission before publication. The sterility of literature moved Pardo de Tavera to describe it as the legacy of obscurantism from Spain. Very few Filipinos, among them being Jose de la Cruz, Josing Sisiu, 1746-1826 to 1820. Sorry guys, mali ako nabasa. Very few Filipinos, among them being Jose de la Cruz, Josing Sisiu, 1746 to 1829, and his pupil Francisco Baltasar, 1788 to 1862. Stood out in the field of literature Baltasar Awit, Florante at Laura. Baltasar's awit, Florante at Laura allegorically indicted Spanish misrule in the Philippines in the last half of the 19th century. However, propagandists like Jose Rizal, nandito na si Jose Rizal, wait lang guys. In the last half of the 19th century, however, propagandists like Jose Rizal, Marcelo H. Del Pilar, Antonio Luna, Graciano Lopez Haina, Mariano Ponce Jose, Maria Panganiban, and others wrote articles that exposed the abject conditions obtaining in the colony. So, ito yung mga ano natin guys eh. Ito yung mga heroes natin oh. Yung national hero natin si Jose Rizal. So, mga propagandist pala sila. Okay, sculpture and painting also served the interest of religion. Anonymous native craftsmen as well as some Chinese artisans carved hundreds of images and statuary for churches all over the Philippines. Native painters made mediocre copies of themes from chromes and estampitas. It was not until art schools were founded in the 19th century that the techniques were improved. The improvement in the colonial economy made portraiture and still life bodegones popular as canvases graced the halls of many an Atlantean residents after a long line of talented native artists to Filipino painters Juan Luna and Felix Resurrection Hidalgo, who secularized painting work in the healthier climes of Madrid and Paris and brought honors to the Philippines when they won the top prizes in the National Exposition of Fine Arts held in Madrid in 1884. State of education. The Spaniards established an educational system that was controlled by the friars. The different religious orders founded most of the first schools and colleges, as well as the late institutions of learning. They prepared and implemented educational policies and supervised curricular planning that the chief feature of which was religion. It was not until the 1860 that the civil government, realizing the detrimental effects of its abandonment of the fold of education to friar control, attempted to secularize the colony's educational system. The Dominicans founded the University of Santo Tomas in 1611, the oldest university in the Philippines. Yung UST guys. They also ran another school for boys, the College of San Juan de Letran, which was founded in 1630 to house and educate young orphan boys. The Jesuits founded the College of San Ignacio 1589 in Manila, the College of San Ildefonso 1595 in Cebu, and the College of San Jose 1601 in Manila. In 1850, so ibig sabihin matagal na ito guys, yung UST, yung University of Santo Tomas is 1611 pa. Tapos yung San Juan de Letra naman is 1630. Tapos until now guys, ano pa yan, buhay na buhay pa yung mga school na yan. Okay. And the College of San Jose 1601. So nauna yung sa Cebu 1601, yung UST 1611 eh. Okay, in Cebu ay mas marami pang nauna pala guys. This Jesuits founded the College of San Ignacio of 1589 pa siya. Tapos yung in Manila yan ha, the College of San Ildefonso 1595. And the College of San Jose 1601. So may nauna sa UST. In 1859, they transformed the Escuela Pia, or charity school, which was founded in 1817 with donation from private citizens, into another college for boys, the present Ateneo de Manila. Separate schools were established for the education of women, the Colegio de Santa Potenciana, 1589, and the Colegio de Santa Isabel, 1632. In the 19th century, the College of La Concordia, 1868, and the Assumption Convent, 1892, were established. The religious also founded several beaterios, charitable institutions created chiefly for the care and education of destitute and orphan girls. So, nag-umpisa yung mga school, mga 1589, 1595 pa, ganyan. The narrowness of its policies and the obvious slant of the various curricula toward religion, however, seriously handicapped the educational system. Before 1863, primary education consisted mainly of Christian doctrine and reading exercises in the Spanish alphabet, the Philippine languages. Secondary and the higher instruction also emphasized religion, Latin grammar instead of Spanish, and hardly touched the more important subjects in the sciences. Worse, these institutions were open only to children of Spaniards. It was not until late in the 19th century that the priors reluctantly give a primary instruction to native. Naabutan na tayo ng oras. Hanggang dito na lang muna tayo. Naabutan na tayo ng oras, guys. Kaya lang mabibitin eh. Tapusin ko lang bago mag-partial Hispanization. Tapusin ko lang. Ulit tayo. The narrowness of its policies and obvious slant of the various curricula toward religion, however, seriously handicapped the educational system. Before 1863, primary education consisted mainly of Christian doctrine and reading exercises in the Spanish alphabet and Philippine languages. Secondary and higher instruction also emphasized religion, Latin grammar instead of Spanish, and hardly touched the more important subjects in the sciences. Worse, these institutions were openly only to children of Spaniards. It was not until late in the 19th century that the priors reluctantly gave primary instruction to native children in makeshift classrooms in their stables. The children were daily subjected to physical and mental torture, so that shame and fear of corporal punishment forced them to drop out of school. In 1862, the Spanish government enacted an educational reform decree designed to improve the state of education. The decree provided for the mabilisan na kasi nga may oras na nga. In 1863, the Spanish government enacted an educational reform decree designed to improve the state of education. The decree provided for the establishment in its town of at least one primary school for boys and another for girls. The municipal government was required to maintain the upkeep of these schools. The decree also provided for the establishment of a normal school for male teachers under the supervision of the Jesuits. It created a commission of 8 members headed by the Governor General and that would supervise the schools in the colony. Primary instruction was to be free, and the teaching of Spanish was to be compulsory. The number of schools and pupils enrolled increased in number after 1863. Still, the system remained inadequate. The Philippine Commission reported in 1900 that for a total population of 6,709,810 at the end of the Spanish regime, there were only 1,914 primary school teachers, or one teacher for every 3,500 natives. Ay, grabe. Guys, one teacher sa 3,500 natives. Ngayon nga, ang minimum, ang maximum na yung 15 natin na students, hirap na. Ulit ha. There were only 1,914 primary school teachers or one teacher for every 3,500 natives. The quality of instruction as a general rule remained very poor, and most of the priors nullified at every opportunity the laws that required the teaching of Spanish. The government opened university education to natives after 1863, resulting in the emergence of an indigenous intelligentsia class. The Spaniards, however, continued to hold the belief that the natives were incapable of learning. Yet at the same time, they conceded that the education of the natives would enable them to understand the value of law and constitutional liberties and accordingly fight for them. Education would help in the formation of liberals who in turn would foment rebellions. It was largely because of this fear that the Spanish priors subverted the government program of improving the standard of education. So hanggang dito lang guys. Bukas na yung paragraph ng partial Hispanization. Bye everyone. God bless.